Thank you. Our next song, I wanted to acknowledge our pianist, John Hayes. And our soloist for the next song is Erica Partlow-Smith. Our next song is called Ella's Song. It's written by Bernice Johnson Reagan. It was inspired by Ella Baker. She was a granddaughter of a slave. She was a staunch supporter of equal rights and advocating that each person has strength and the ordinary people can fight and do necessary work. We don't need to rely on our leaders so much. We can do it ourselves. And she founded the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which gave power to women, people of color, and the poor. And so we want to honor Miss Ella. And also, one of our members, Rachel Zond, wrote most of these verses. So we've taken Ella's song to a new level, and we hope you enjoy it.
We who believe in freedom shall not rest. We who believe in freedom shall not rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. When the right to an education is something that must be won, and our children have to fight for their learning while hiding from a gun. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. If a woman cannot feed her family while working 2 jobs a day, and the people in power tell her they will not raise her pay, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We women want control of our bodies, and the law still protects our choice. But if we don't keep speaking up for our rights, they will not hear our voice. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Unless all of our children are cherished and to their hearts can be true, and no one tries to change or reject them, we have more work to do. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
We're truly honored this evening to welcome Judy and Dennis Shepard of the Matthew Shepard Foundation to Alaska and to our UAS Power and Privilege Symposium. The topic of their presentation will be the legacy of Matthew Shepard, discussing the life and legacy of their 21-year-old son, Matthew, who was murdered in Laramie, Wyoming 20 years ago in a crime motivated by anti-gay hate. Just 12 days ago, Matthew was laid to rest in safety at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. Tonight we'll hear about the powerful journey the Shepards have taken as nationally recognized allies and advocates for social justice, diversity awareness, and education and civil rights. Before I say more about their backgrounds, I want to express my sincere appreciation to two individuals in our community who were the original inspiration for bringing Judy and Dennis to our community. Those two are Lynn Davis and Maureen Longworth. It was their inspired vision that Matthew's story, as told by his parents, would be shared here in Juneau. And this evening, we are the beneficiaries of their vision and dedication to making this a better world. So thank you very much, Lynn and Mo. In October 1998, Judy and Dennis Shepard lost their beloved 21-year-old son Matthew to a murder motivated by prejudice and hate. Matthew's death moved many thousands of people around the world to attend vigils and rallies in his memory. The story of his life and legacy has been told on stage in the Laramie Project and in film, including Matt Shepard was a friend of mine and the Matthew Shepard story. Determined to prevent others from suffering their son's fate, Judy and Dennis decided to turn their grief into action and establish the Matthew Shepard Foundation to carry on their son's legacy. The foundation is dedicated to working toward causes that Matthew championed during his life: social justice, diversity education, and equality for gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. The work of the foundation and many others led to enactment by Congress of the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act of 2009. James, an African-American man, was brutally killed by 3 white supremacists in Jasper, Texas in 1998. Judy Shepard's founding president of the Matthew Shepard Foundation and has served as both president and executive director between 1999 and 2009. In her continuing role as president, she travels the nation speaking to audiences about what they can do as individuals and communities to make this world a more accepting place for everyone, regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, sex, gender identity and expression, or sexual orientation. Speaking from a mother's perspective, Judy authored a 2009 memoir, The Meaning of Matthew, exploring the family's journey through the prosecution of Matthew's assailants, the ensuing media coverage, and their continuing work to advance civil rights. Originally trained as a teacher, Judy holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in secondary education from the University of Wyoming. And like Judy, Dennis has also been an advocate for parents' unconditional love for their LGBTQ children. Born in Nebraska, Dennis earned a degree in education from the University of Wyoming before marrying Judy in 1973 and settling in Casper, Wyoming to raise their family. An oil industry safety specialist, Dennis worked for more than 16 years for Saudi Aramco in Saudi Arabia before retiring in 2009. He's served on the Matthew Shepard Foundation board since the organization's inception. And like Judy, he speaks to audiences throughout the country, particularly to victims advocacy organizations and law enforcement audiences. He and Judy continue to live in Casper, Wyoming. We're indeed honored to have these 2 loving parents with us and their eloquent voices for social justice and equality here at the University of Alaska Southeast. At Matthew's interment in Washington's National Cathedral just 12 days ago, Episcopal Bishop Gene Robinson commented that he felt Matthew Shepard presente, that Matthew's spirit is among us. I too feel that Matthew's spirit is among us, and for that we are very grateful. So please join me in welcoming Judy and Dennis Shepard.
Thank you very much.
Are you like that?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Hello?
I'll just close that there.
Yeah, that's good. Just lower that a little bit.
Let's do this.
Oh, no, I might step off.
Are you sure?
Yeah, sure. Bad accident once, so no, I'm not going to do that.
The microphone does come off.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that. Can you all hear me okay? All right. I'm generally pretty soft-spoken, and I'm going to start tonight and then turn it over to Dennis. And we generally talk for a little while about what we're doing now, about Matt a little bit. But what we'd really like to do is open the floor to questions as the evening wears on. So I understand you've been talking about Matt a little bit today, and publicity about the event has been going around, and we've kind of been in the news a little bit in the last few weeks. So if you have any questions, please keep them in mind. We're happy to answer probably most anything. We are nothing to be afraid of. We're very friendly. We don't bite. We don't snap, and we occasionally are funny. Okay, we have funny stories. It's okay. It's okay to laugh. We want you to laugh. We want you to understand that this is a celebration of Matt's life, and this is also a celebration of what happened after Matt's death. We have accomplished so much, not just us, but us as a society, and even internationally, so many steps have been taken forward to advance the causes of actually not even just the LGBTQ plus community, but all marginalized communities worldwide. And so this is really a celebration of that. And today is election day, so we're going to celebrate that because we know it's going to get better after today. And if it doesn't, I'm going to spend 3 days crying in my chair again and then get back up and start the fight all over. Yeah, I'm not really sure where to start. I usually start by railing against the government, but today it's going to change. So I'm not comfortable doing that today. We have a couple months to wait before things really start to. I'm talking positively here because I'm thinking really positive here. And if you haven't voted yet today, when you leave this room tonight, I expect you to go do it. We raised our kids, both our kids in Wyoming, with the understanding that the world is bigger than Wyoming. And when we made the decision to go to Saudi Arabia to live with Dennis's job, we did that also with the understanding that we wanted our boys to learn about the world, not just their backyard in Wyoming. It was a monumental choice for us, and it was a monumental choice for them. It was a give and a take. We missed out on a lot of their typical high school careers, as did they. They became world citizens, which in its own right is a very challenging thing to go back home to because no one understands or can relate to experiences outside Wyoming. Or I'm sure the same is true of where anybody lives, including Alaska. So when we took on this journey after Matt passed, the reason we did it was we began to receive so many calls and letters from parents of LGBTQ youth who begged us to share our story as accepting parents. We did both know that Matt was gay before he was attacked, which was a blessing in itself. To share our story as accepting parents so other families might rethink the idea that they had thrown away their children because they were gay, because they still had their children. They still had the opportunity to include their children in their lives and embrace them. We as a family, Dennis and I and Matt's little brother, Logan, we made that decision while Matt was still in the hospital, that we owed it to Matt to try to make a difference for his family, friends, peers, and community if we had a voice people were going to listen to for a short amount of time. Window of opportunity, little window of opportunity, 2 years max. We in no way thought 20 years later we'd still be here. Honestly, we hoped 20 years later we wouldn't need to be here. We thought we were on a really good path to accomplishing that until 2 years ago. We had to change our business plan completely after the election of 2016 because after the vitriol and the increase in hate crimes and violence, people shouting at one another, epithets, downgrading, degrading each other, it was like we're just right back where we were at the very beginning, where gay people were singled out and people of color and a different national origin or religion or whatever. Anybody deemed other was being singled out and persecuted again. During the Obama administration, we felt we had 8 really good years of advancements in the civil rights movement. 8 really good years with a really good man, a really good family who set examples of acceptance and embracing everybody, internationally, everybody. But here we are again, back in 1950, where anybody who's not straight, white, Christian man is in danger. Yes, that's what I said. Straight, white, Christian man, you're in danger if you're not in that category. As a woman, as a person of color, as a member of the LGBTQ community, Muslim, Hindu, Jew, you're in danger in this world today. Our leaders, we have no leadership, basically, setting an example of acceptance, of trying to advance anybody else. In fact, they're removing things from us. They're taking things away from us that would put us on an equal playing field with them. And they're doing it in a way that is not even nuanced. It's blatant. And we see it every day. But this is a new day. This is a new day. From today, we're either going to learn how much we have either lost and will continue to lose, or we are really going to make a change, even if we do it in the way we behave to one another. So, we are a community united again. And when anyone says or feels like, oh, I tolerate you, well, that basically means I'm allowing you to exist, but I want you to do it over there. Over there. Not here, next to me, or not in my same group of friends or my same community, but over there. We tolerate bad hair days like today. We don't tolerate people. We don't tolerate human beings. They are human beings, at the core the same as everybody else. They love, they lose, they have dreams, aspirations, the same as everybody else at the core. And they are unique. And we should be embracing that uniqueness, not singling out or thinking it's weird or different. We should be embracing that, because that is how we grow. That is how we grow, when we learn from one another. That is how we grow. And when we stop growing, we stop moving forward. We stop making advancements. We become stagnant and suspicious and even hateful. In reality, we all are an other to somebody. All of us. We all are an other to somebody. And I think if we would think about it in those terms, it would be easier to accept that we're all different, and it's beautiful. That we could learn from one another, learn their cuisine, learn their cultures, learn something about their religion that might even improve our lives. So I grew up in Wyoming. I was born and raised there. My grandparents homesteaded there in the early 1900s. Wyoming is 96% white. Well, and people really do live there. I know people don't think live there, but they really do live there. We're outnumbered by antelope, but there really are people there. We are the lowest populated state, just over 500,000 people, 8th largest, 500,000 people. We have a reservation, Shoshone and Northern Arapaho, historically warring tribes. That was a good move on the government's part. But we are 96% white, so try to explain the concept of diversity to anybody who lives in Wyoming is like, well, no, because we don't see it. Why should we learn about it? It'll never be part of our lives. But what they are missing is that whether they recognize it or not, diversity is their life, because we are a global society and a global economy now, whether anybody or everybody wants to admit that or not. We are. Because of the internet and the speed with which we communicate things about each other and to each other, we know everything about the world in a heartbeat. That is relatively new. We understand other countries' economies, or we think we do. We try to learn about their culture, or we should. And if we don't, we just won't survive this world without knowing how the rest of the world is living and surviving or not. It's hard for us to understand that parts of the world, every day, their existence is trying to find a drink of water and a handful of rice. Not which brand of bread do I buy. That's their life. They're operating on a different level than we are. We take it for granted, the blessings that we have here. So maybe to some, it seems like, why are we complaining that hate exists in this country? Well, I'm complaining about it because that's not the country I want to live in. That's not who we are. That's just not who we are. We all came here for somebody else, looking from somewhere else, looking for something better. So why are we letting them take it away from us? Why are we allowing that to happen? But today is a new day. We've stopped letting them do that, right? Right? Right. We have done that. We have done that. And through all the campaigning, at least we sent the message that there are more of us than them. More people who want an accepting, loving world than don't. So this is why we're here today. We're here to tell you about Matt. We're here to talk about what we envision for the future, what we really want Matt's world to be like. It's really not about Matt anymore. It's about the rest of us and the world we want and the world we know Matt was working for. So I'm going to turn the podium over to Dennis. I don't know what he's going to talk about because I just talked about everything. And then we're going to open the floor to questions. So please, please, this is the best part of the program, I promise. Questions, not Dennis. And yeah, shut up. So we, and really this is where we learn what your concerns are. And if there's anything we can do to maybe help, maybe. I mean, we don't live here, but maybe. So I'm turning it over to Dennis now.
I've got this.
But you can't stand here.
Thank you very much. Before I talk a little bit about Matt, I just wanted to follow up on what Judy has said. For all of you who voted today, thank you. You are making change. For all of you who did not vote today, shame on you. You're making change. I have seen change being overseas all those years, and I have seen the dreams that Matt had. Matt spoke English, German, Italian, Arabic, and Japanese. He was taking French when he died. He wanted to work overseas for the State Department to bring the same privileges, rights, duties, and responsibilities to other countries that he thought he had in America. Thought he had. Turns out that our two sons, one straight and one gay, our younger son had more rights and privileges than his older brother, and still has that today. He was considered a second-class citizen, even though he was born in Wyoming. Even though if he'd have lived, he'd have paid the same amount of taxes. He did not have equal rights. Now, we're not talking about gay rights. Gay rights is something that people use to upset somebody else. You're getting something that I don't have. No, we're talking about equal rights for American citizens. The right to marry, the right to be in the military, the right to adopt, the right to hold a job. You know, you can still be fired in 30 states for being gay. A lot of people don't know that, including Wyoming, the equality state. The 5 states without a hate crime law: Indiana, Georgia, South Carolina, Arkansas, and Wyoming, the equality state. Many of those states that do have hate crime laws do not include sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, disability, or perception, which is what you find in the law named after Matt and Mr. Byrd. Now, Matt was a thorn in my side. He stood 5'2", weighed 105 pounds when he died. He never met a stranger. He didn't see color. He didn't see body size. He didn't see religion. He didn't see anything but another person. And he just wanted to make another friend. From the time he was in the 5th grade, he was a peer counselor in grade school, in junior high, and in high school, because he could be trusted by the staff and he could be trusted by his fellow students to do what he could to help them and not tell secrets. Matt loved politics. He started campaigning for local politicians when he was 7. Irritatingly so. And he knew all the politicians locally, and he knew their issues. And he told you who you should vote for. Incessantly. He also loved the theater. At the age of 10, there was an application he picked up. It said, if you want to be a part of the Stage 3, which is the local theater group, community theater. He asked me, he said, should I fill it out? And I said, well, you can't join it if you don't fill it out. So he filled it out and sent it in, and I got a call saying, well, we're not really sure if Matt should be part of this. We've had problems with young people. I said, maybe you have, but you haven't met Matt. So they said, okay. So I would take him to the theater, and he was working backstage at the time. After 2 weeks, I went to pick him up, and the stage manager said, we don't know what we'd do without him. He loved the theater, and he'd already made friends with everybody. He was always asking questions, wanted to know what he could do to help. And then he started doing parts. And then he started doing parts for the junior college there. And it got to the point at both the adult theater group and the junior college theater that they had a part for a boy his age. They would ask him if he was interested. If he was, they did not have tryouts. Now, the reason I bring this up was he loved the theater and he was involved in it all his life. When he came out to me, he'd called Judy and told her on the phone at 5 o'clock in the morning in Saudi Arabia. And she always mutters about that because Matt couldn't do math for time zones. And so he told her on the phone, and she said, I know. He said, how do you know? She said, because it's a mom thing. Not to do anything with the fact that for 3 years in a row, his best costume at Halloween was Dolly Parton. And it got really good. But we were at a family reunion with Judy's family, and he said, Dad, I need to talk to you. Judy had already told me after she promised Matt she wouldn't tell me, because you know how mothers lie all the time. And
Tell them why I told you.
because I have a big mouth, and I say things, then I think about it afterwards. And that's just what happened. She told me, I said, no, he's not gay. He just hasn't met the right woman. And she said, no, he hasn't met the right man. I said, I need to think about that. The reason I had to think about it was my grandfather helped raise my sons. He taught them how to hunt and fish and camp, and he raised horses, so he taught them how to ride and love the great outdoors. And I wanted to do the same thing for grandkids. I wanted to have grandkids so I could do the same thing. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized, you know, you are so selfish. You still have your son. You can still make memories with him. You can still do things with him. Look at the families who have lost one of their children, one or more, through military service, vehicle accidents, health issues. You still have your son. And you can still have grandkids today. And then I thought, I even get a bonus. I can have 2 bachelor parties. So we're in Minnesota, and Matt says, Dad, I need to talk to you when this is over. I have something really important to tell you. I said, okay. So about 11:30, everybody's going to bed. Matt says, Dad, can we meet now? I said, yeah, it's really late. So we went to the kitchen, and he said, Dad, sit down. This is really important. I said, okay. So he leaned up against the kitchen sink. He said, Dad, I'm gay. I looked at my watch, and I said, you know, it's really late. Tell me what's important so I can go to bed. Because it didn't matter. He was my son first. But Matt, with his imagination, being in the theater, you could see him go, because he knew I was going to yell and scream and shake him and kick open the door and throw him out. Next thing, he'd be going down the road with his shopping cart in a blizzard, all his possessions in it. Never would happen. He's our son first. And that's what needs to be understood. Being LGBTQ is not a choice. It's who you are. It's no different than having the fact that Matt had blue eyes and blonde hair. That was not a choice. It is never a choice. It's not a lifestyle, as people want to call it. A lifestyle is living in Michigan in the summer and Florida in the winter. A lifestyle for here is living in Juneau in the summer and Ketchikan in the winter. No. What do you mean, no? It's further south, so it's got to be warmer. But it is not a choice. It is who you are. And when we start to accept that, we start to realize what marvelous people we all are, as Judy was saying. Look around. Look at the person next to you on either side. Raise your hand if the person next to you is identical. We are all different. And let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate that. We need to be different. That's what made this country. Now, like I said, Matt was a thorn But he wasn't a thorn to his mother because they both were short. So they could talk eye to eye. They both loved the theater and politics, bad jokes, TV, celebrity gossip. They should have been married to each other. It had been the marriage made in heaven. But when Matt was in the hospital, and after he passed away, we had a choice at that time. We could go back to Saudi Arabia and say we had one son and we're proud of him, and pretend we didn't have a second son. Or my 15 on 10 scale introvert wife could stay in the States, and I could go back to Saudi Arabia alone, and she could start working to protect all our kids. And everybody out here under 45 is our kid. You all are. And we are here for you. We will do whatever we can to protect you. And we will not stop. And you are protecting yourself because you're living the life you want to live. You're going to have crappy days, trust me. But that's no excuse to give up. Everybody has crappy days. Don't give up. If you do, the haters win. We want them to go back in the dark little holes where they belong, where we have the respect and the social skills and graces again to allow everybody to be who they are. Don't give up. Thank you.
I want to add a couple things before we go to questions. Can you still hear me? I can't hear my. Okay. So, two things. Matt had some really dark days, but what Matt did understand was every day was a brand new day. Every day was a brand new day. Secondly, the thing that really turned things around in this country during the administration of George W. Bush, you know, W, remember W?
We miss him now.
We kind of do. Even though he's the reason for the mess we're in, we kind of miss him. At least he was a decent human being, right? Okay, moving on. What happened in those years when we knew nothing legislatively was going to cross his desk, because he'd made it very clear he would do nothing to advance the cause of the LGBT community. What did happen was we started talking and organizing and telling our stories. That is what changed everything, telling our stories. When your neighbor found out you were gay and did not at all fit the stereotypical myth they thought represented the gay community, that changed everything. Your coworker, the person you sat next to on the bus, your sports idol, your acting idol, your political representative, your pastor, your grocery store manager, your banker, your doctor, your police chief. When we all found out those people were gay, it changed everything. Because it changed the concept of what we thought the gay community was. Because the only time anybody ever talked about the gay community was in derogatory terms of the myth of what the gay community represented. The only thing you ever saw in mainstream media was pride parades, and it was only the boas and the LeMay that made the cover, not the families in the back, and the AIDS pandemic. There was never anything else. We didn't learn about our wonderful historical figures who happened to be gay, who changed everything, arts and literature, or the people who later came out, or anything about history of the gay community. We were not represented. So why would anybody respect who we were? It was like, well, they're brand new people. Well, no, they're not brand new people. Been here forever and will always be here. And in most cultures, highly respected. But not this culture. Not the Christian culture. So we have something to learn from everybody else about accepting one another. So that being said, do you have anything to add?
As Judy said about the boas, you have to remember, if you look in the back of the parade where the families are, you have the straight and the gay, the allies. The allies are critical. The allies outnumber LGBTQ. You have to remember one thing. They want to help, not just LGBTQ, but any marginalized community, but especially with the LGBTQ right now. You know, when I was growing up, queer, was a bad term to use. Now it's a term of pride. But now you have all these pronouns, and you have LGBTQ, IAAMOUSE. I mean, there's so many, you don't know. The allies want to help, but they're afraid of asking questions because they're afraid of being pushed away because they're asking stupid questions. They're not stupid to them, and the LGBTQ community has to understand they want to learn. And the straight community has to understand that it's going to take time for us to learn. Now with the pronouns, where you go he, him, his, she, her, hers, they, them, it's hard to figure out what to use. Both sides need patience to learn and to work together on this. But they want to be out there and to help you. Both sides need to have patience and not be afraid to ask the questions that need to be asked so you learn. Please. And one other thing. Other than the short time in the bedroom everybody seems to spend time on, both sides get up and go to work, come home, raise a family, pay the bills, mow the grass, which means the gay community is just as boring as the straight community. They just dress a little better. But it's important. They're the same people. The very same people. Trying to make a living, have a happy life, and die with a smile on their face. And that's what we need to remember.
I sometimes read on Twitter, because I'm kind of addicted to Twitter, that...
She won't let me on Twitter and Facebook. I don't know why.
No way. I'm not here to be your teacher. You should come to me with questions already educated. I'm sorry, but yes, you are my teacher. I need to ask you these questions because I can't find the answers anyplace else. As Dennis said, this is going to require some patience on both sides. But we are begging you to please make the attempt. Please. There used to be a philosophy when I first started, 20 years ago, when I first started doing this, that there was a finite number of pockets to help philanthropic, to be philanthropic and help nonprofits working in the LGBT community. That is so not true. Many members of the allied community would love to help you if they just knew how. They were asked to help. They want to help. So I'm asking you to please take a leap of faith. Yes, I understand maybe members of the community, straight community, have rejected you before, but I'm hoping those days are gone, that we're out here to help. We just don't know how. Help us. Figure that out. And answer our stupid questions, because we just don't know. we're not part of your world. We want to be part of your world as much as we can to help you achieve everything that we know you're being denied. Just please trust us and ask us to help. Ask us all to help. It's a leap of faith, I know. And sometimes people will ask you really stupid questions. But they learn, and they're doing their best. Not everybody is being mean-spirited about it. You will find some, I'm sure. But those numbers are dwindling, I hope. And today's a brand new day. So now we're going to open the floor to questions. Only 2 rules for questions, really, that it really is a question and a question with an answer. For example, this is from the days when I used to do this by myself. Years ago, many years ago. Please don't ask me how to come out to Grandma, because I don't have the answer to that. Because everybody's story is different. There's no blueprint for coming out. And honestly, why do we do that anyway? I mean, really? Do we have to do that? It seems like such a silly thing to have to do, but in today's society, it's still important, because everybody needs to know how many of us there are. There are way more than people think there are. Trust me. Everybody in this room knows somebody who's gay. Now, you may not know that you know someone who's gay, but you do.
And that's part of the fear. They hide it because, again, Alaska's like Wyoming. I can get married right now, have a husband, go in at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning and try and put him on my insurance. At 8 and 9 o'clock, I'm packing my bags because I've been fired. So they're not going to come out. They're not going to let you know if there's a chance of endangering themselves, endangering their husband or their wife, or endangering the family they have and losing the job they love. So that's something that you in this state need to change. You need a job discrimination bill, state level, and then you need to get your representatives to start working on a national one to protect everybody. That is the assignment that, as teachers, we're giving you now. And you need to talk about it, and you need to keep pushing it forward, especially you young people. This affects you a lot more than old geezers like me. This affects your whole life if you want to stay in this state. Wyoming has a brain drain because the young people are leaving to go to other states where either they are accepted and they're protected or their friends are. Same thing is going to happen here if you don't do something about it and make change. And that should be one of your main focuses, is talking about this and getting this change made for job protection.
But it doesn't also... It's not just about protecting your job. If you live in a state where you can be fired for being gay, you're also going to be far more reluctant to report a hate crime or anything that's happened to you for fear of losing your job. And if you're not out, for fear of being outed when you're not ready. So this is a double-edged sword here, and this is something the whole country needs to address. The one thing we did not accomplish in the Obama administration was job protections, as well as public accommodation. So this is something we really have to work on after this brand new day. So let's open the floor to questions. Does anybody want to start us off with a good, hard question?
There we are.
Hi, thank you for being here.
Could you stand, please?
I don't think this is a hard question. I was just wondering if you had always been an ally to the LGBTQ community, or if your son coming out changed you.
That's an excellent question. I had many gay friends in college, so this wasn't an unexpected thing to me. I suspected Matt was gay from the time he was about 8, the Dolly Parton years. I don't know, I think Dennis was not aware, or it wasn't on his radar. But your answer is, we were supportive, But if we had not lost Matt, I would be the mom at PFLAG meetings making the cookies, not the mom at the podium. Because this just isn't me. Dennis might have been at the podium, but not me. We see actually, one of Dennis's main complaints is there's not enough dads out there doing, really speaking out, even though they're supportive, they're, for one reason or another, not actually at the podium. So he might have been the one that did this ahead of me. But thank you for your question.
A follow-up on that the reason we weren't supporting Matt for being gay was we didn't know there were issues. We didn't realize he and the rest of the LGBTQ community was being discriminated, that they were being vandalized, beaten, fired, they couldn't marry, they couldn't have medical protection to go in with their partner. We didn't know any of this. We learned it after Matt died. We thought he's an American citizen born in Wyoming. He's a citizen with every right and responsibility and duty that every other person has. As after he died, we found out the tragedy of the discrimination going on in this country.
And the reason we didn't know was because it's not ever in the press. Nobody ever talked about it. So unless you knew someone in the community who was experiencing it, mainstream media never mentioned anything other than the AIDS pandemic or Pride Parade, ever. So what happened to Matt is really the first time I recall something being written in an honest, professional manner about the gay community that awakened the straight community to the violence and other issues facing the gay community. That was the first time I remember that happening. And easily the correspondence we received, condolences and so on, easily half of it was from the straight community, telling us they had no idea that this was going on, and they were going to make a change. I'd like to write to them now and ask, what did they do to make that change 20 years later? I'm hoping many of them really followed through. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Do you have another? There's one, got some over here too.
Thank you for being here. When you meet people who actively oppose equal rights, what do you say to them, and what messages get through and help bring them around?
Oh, that's an easy question to answer. We don't meet those people. Well, and the reason is, early on, I made it a rule that I was never going to go where I wasn't invited, because you know the old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make a drink? That is absolutely true in this case. Unless people are willing to learn, they're not going to listen. I can spend my time on the vast, educatable middle who have no opinion because they're uneducated about it. They're ignorant about it. Perhaps because of the reason why we are here, we rarely are confronted with those who strongly disagree with us. And to be quite honest, my philosophy is I am right and you're wrong. So I'm just as steadfast in my opinions as they would be in theirs. Pat Robertson is never going to invite us to come on his show, right? So I understand that this is the bell curve sort of situation, one extreme to the other, but it's really the middle I want to talk to. And I understand that this room is probably largely the choir. Well, that's okay we
The choir needs to practice.
So the answer to your question is, we rarely run into them. In the very, very, very beginning, I spoke to a lot of colleges. Dennis was still in Saudi. And I can guarantee you, after every program, some sweet-faced little thing would come to me with a very tattered Bible. And it would be like, no, this is not about you and what you think. This is about Matt. So I sort of established that pattern just right from the beginning. I don't view my role as changing somebody else's mind just because they're coming to hear me speak. I know that's not going to happen. What changes their mind is a personal experience. Someone in their family is gay, a coworker, a friend, and how do they find that out? You have to tell them. It may not be accepting, but you'll never know unless you tell them. I can't tell you how many men my age would come up to me after a program and say, I'm so moved by your story of how important it is to come out. I'm going to go home, tell my mom I'm gay. I'm thinking, you're 60 years old, living with your mom. You think she doesn't know? But the tragedy of that story is they lied to each other for decades. Decades. Never got to share their best part of their lives with each other because of the secret. So I'm encouraging anybody in this audience who's thinking about that path, please don't go down that path. Please don't. Thank you for your question. Do we have another? Yes.
Thank you so much for coming. And something that has stood out in my mind since I first heard of both of you, which was on the news, when you came forward after Matthew passed away and gave forgiveness to the people who had caused that. And I personally don't think I would have been able to do that. And am I imagining that, or isn't that true that you, I mean, I just am so curious how you could go at that moment and move to forgiveness. And I don't know if this is an unanswerable question,
No.
but it's the question I most want to ask, so thank you.
I just have, it's not unanswerable. We've answered it many times. Don't conflate forgiveness with not doing the death penalty. That is not what happened. What happened is, and just very briefly, factually, the defense, the first young man changed his plea from not guilty to guilty and was sentenced in a sentencing hearing to 2 consecutive life sentences. The second young man, both people, by the way, Matt's age, 21, had an actual trial, and he was found guilty of 2 crimes, which made him eligible, according to Wyoming law, for the death penalty. We knew when the jury came back, and it was up to the jury in Wyoming to decide whether to give him the death penalty or not. We were very confident that they would come back with that decision. The defense team for that young man came forward to the prosecuting attorney, the lead investigating officers, and Dennis and I, with a proposal that he would accept the same sentencing as the other young man, along with a couple other things, which included never appealing the decision. Well, that meant we'd never see him again. That was very attractive to me. I just wanted it to be over. I didn't want to go through the process of mandatory appeals, which come with a death sentence. I didn't want our younger son to have to deal with this in his adult life, ever, because these 2 men were so young. I knew that Logan would have to deal with it. So I supported that decision. Now, initially, I'm pretty sure I was the only one who did, because I just wanted it to be over. Everybody else was like, no, he needs to go. We had a day of discussion and came to the conclusion I won. Largely because I think it was, it just needed to end. It just needed to end. And there was always the smallest chance that some technicality would erase the decision. And I was not willing to take that chance. And I don't think in the end, that might have been the reason why everyone else changed their mind too. Dennis still, if you ask him that question, I'm not gonna let him answer, but if you ask him that question, he still wants to yeah. Don't conflate that with forgiveness. They've not asked for it, and until they do, it's not even on our radar, so they're just gone. They're just, we don't know anything about them unless they're moved. So they're just gone, just gone.
Judy was right. I wanted to fry him then. I still want to fry him. But you convinced me that, as she said, there'd be a lifetime of appeals, especially for Logan. Be a chance of getting off on a technicality. While he's on death row, he's a folk hero, so you have copycats. If he's actually put to death, he becomes a martyr, so you have copycats. So in this case, much as I still want to slowly fry him, she was right. And we'll live with it.
Just one thing I want to add to that, in case you have any questions about how it's going to end up eventually. They are both serving 2 consecutive life terms. There was no Wyoming statute for life without parole for anything that they would have done. So for them ever to be eligible for parole, a future governor of Wyoming has to commute one of the sentences. That's the only way they would ever be eligible for parole. I don't see that happening in our lifetime, but it may happen at some future day because they are in their 40s now. So, you know, you never know what the future might hold. Thank you for your question. Do you have another question? Yes.
I have a question. Is this on? Okay. I know that the religious community has been very destructive in many ways toward the LGBTQ community, and we'll own that. But many of us do seek to be allies. My understanding is Matt was a religious person, and I wondered if you could talk about what his faith meant to him and what it means to you at this time.
Just as a little background to that question, we did not baptize either of our children. Because I was not baptized either, my family did not baptize their children. Their philosophy was to let us choose our own faith when we got old enough. And Dennis's family had a little different story, but when we had Matt and Logan, we agreed we would not baptize them either. We would let them choose. Logan still is nothing. He's spiritual, is how he describes himself. I would say Matt was more spiritual than religious. He was baptized in the Episcopal Church and confirmed, but I always felt, and he was an acolyte and loved the church, but I always felt that he loved the church more for the theater, the community, and the drama that goes along with it. Not because he wanted to study the Bible or the life of Jesus or learn the Psalms or, you know, whatever. It was more about community and feeling safe in his environment and always the opportunity to make new friends. But I would not ever describe Matt religious. But he did love the church. He did love the church. So when he was in the National Cathedral, it seemed very fitting, very fitting. Thank you for your question.
I have two questions which may be tough. I think when parents lose a child, often and especially in tragic circumstances, so it's always tragic. How did you keep your marriage together? Is my first question.
Long distance.
And great senses
no
of humor.
No nagging that way.
And my other tough question is, how is Logan?
I'm going to take both of those, actually, because there's really short answers. And we get that question a lot, actually, because most families, as you say, don't hold together after such a tragedy, and especially after such a highly publicized tragedy. Dennis went back to Saudi, I stayed here, and Logan went back to high school, boarding school. Because in Saudi, there's no Western schools, so all the students go to a boarding school following graduation from the 9th grade. So he was going to school in Minnesota. I was living most of my time in Wyoming, except when I went back to Saudi to see Dennis. And Dennis was in Saudi working. So we didn't encounter some of the typical problems like, I don't understand why that bothers you and it doesn't bother me. Or shouldn't you be over that by now? Or why is it so hard for you to get out of bed today? We grieved in our own time and space, in our own way. I guess it worked. I don't know that I would recommend it for anybody else, but it worked for us. I went to a counselor because my friend said, I think you should see a counselor. And my brother said, you're Irish. Why are you going to a counselor?
Just have whiskey.
Yeah. But I went and she said about my work, well, do you think you do this work to keep Matt with you? Like it was a criticism. It's like, well, hell yes, that's why I do this work, to keep Matt with me. That's a stupid question, so I didn't go back. And I guess really the real answer to that question is, this is how we survived it, by doing this. This kept Matt with us, it kept us involved in Matt's community, gave us a reason to get up every day and a purpose. That's how we survived it. Logan was 4 years younger than Matt, is 4 years younger than Matt. He just got engaged after living 10 years with his fiancée. Now they're engaged.
It'll be 10 more years before they make a set a date.
Maybe.
Speed kills in the Shepard family.
Yeah. He worked for the foundation for 15 years, lived in Denver where our office is, but Denver became just another big dirty city. Wasn't the jewel of the West like it used to be. And they just got tired of Denver, and he just needed a life away from this. So now he's not in Denver anymore. He's doing really well. He loves where they live now. He hates his job, but he loves where they live now. They're very happy. He's doing very well. He did have a couple of rough years in the beginning because he is an extreme introvert like me, and the press terrified him. And that was really bothersome to him for the first 2 years. After that, it got a little easier. And one day, one of his friends in college who happened to be gay said, "Logan, you need to pay attention to what your parents are doing because it's important to us." So that's when he came to work for us. Thank you for your question. Do we have any more? Any more deep, probing questions?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Edward Chalmers. I'm from Metlakatla, Alaska. The family of the Shepards have suffered the loss of their son Matthew Shepard. And I think it's appropriate as a Tsimshian native to sing the Passover song for Matthew Shepard. It's not just my voice. My forefathers are with me, standing with me right now. They all give their condolences to you and your husband. The song goes like this. He-I-ho, I-ho, I-he-I-hey. Hey, 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 he-I-ho, I-he-I-hey. He-ay-hey, 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 he-ay-hey. My name is Matthew Shepard. I was put on this earth for a reason. For now, grandfather has called me home, and I am glad. Earth is a suffering place. He-I-ho, hi-oh, hi-he-I-hey. Hey, 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 he-I-ho, hi-he-I-hey. He-ay-hey, he-ah-hey, he-ay-hey, he-ah-hey. He-ay-hey, he-ah-hey. He-ay-hey, he-ah-hey. My name is Matthew Shepard. I was put on this earth for a reason. For now, grandfather has called me home, which I am glad. He-I-ho, hi-oh, hi-he-I-hey. Hey, 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 he-I-ho, hi-he-I-hey. he, hey, he, hey, he, hey. My name is Matthew Shepard. I was put on this earth for a reason. For now, grandfather has called me home, and I am glad.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are very honored. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Pretty tough to follow, but thank you for your honesty tonight. I was really blown away by almost all of your answers. I do have a question about the process of when you found out that Matt was going to be laid to rest at the National Cathedral, and how you felt, considering he did seem like such a patriot at heart. So I just was wondering how that process went and how you felt when you found out.
Sure. This will be the last question for tonight. Thank you for the question. It was actually one of a series of coincidences this had happened. We'd been approached by the Smithsonian Museums to donate Matt's things to the museum. They're starting an LGBTQ collection, and had already gathered several collections from older generations from the 40s and 50s. We were quite honored that they considered Matt's story to be important enough to be included. They came to our house, took everything away, and one of the gentlemen there knew that we still had Matt's ashes and were reluctant to put them somewhere for fear of vandalism, make it public. But we knew we needed to do something for those who wanted to honor Matt. So we had these ashes and weren't really quite sure what to do. First we were going to scatter them, and then Logan said he needed a place to be able to go. And for us, splitting the ashes didn't seem quite right. So one of the gentlemen from the Smithsonian said, well, have you ever considered the National Cathedral? It's like, well, no, we don't live there. We don't go there. It's the National Cathedral. No. And I didn't even know they did that there. I knew there was, I didn't know that if there was, no idea, because you never hear about it. So we talked about it, and I emailed Bishop Gene Robinson, who was the first gay bishop to be consecrated in the early 90s, his friend, or the early 2000s. And he's a friend of ours, and I emailed him and asked him what he thought about this idea, and he wrote back like 30 seconds later, oh my God, this is perfect. He contacted the National Cathedral, they were all about it, and in 4 months it was done.
The coincidence was it's the 20th year, and then we were already set up on the 25th of October for the signing ceremony of the Smithsonian. And we were going to do it in December. We were going back at a private ceremony. And they said, no. Think about a ceremony open to the public. We said, well, nobody's going to want to come. Yeah, well, we're really stupid about that part. There were over 2,000 people there. But the fact was they had an opening the day after the Smithsonian, so we could do it all at one time and have the one solid celebration. So it was just all the forces met right at the same time.
Not just have things that have worked the whole 20 years. It's a series of coincidences and all the work we do. Like some things just wouldn't happen without something happening in addition to that. You know, the definition of luck is opportunity meeting preparedness. And I guess that's what happened. So thank you for your question.
Tell them where the link is if they want to see the ceremony.
I'm sorry?
Oh,
yes, the ceremony was streamed live, but as far as I know, it is still available online at cathedral.org if anyone is interested in crying for 2 hours.
One thing we found out as we were leaving to take Matt's ashes away, the last musical piece that they played that day, they have only played before for heads of state.
It was really a beautiful day. Again, we are so grateful that you all came out tonight to spend some time with us. We hope you found it useful, inspiring, and it's a brand new day. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We have two gifts that we'd like to share with Judy and Dennis from all of us here at the University of Alaska Southeast. So we have this memorial of your event here, and also a book of Alaskan photographs.
Oh, wonderful.
With you. Once again, thank you very much from all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to be around here for a while if you want to come up and talk or pictures or something. We're here. You're stuck with us. I need to.
That's okay. It's on now? Hello. Hi, everyone. As you're leaving, I just want to remind you one final time, please vote.